Hey guys, it's Tom Fox, and welcome to 2022's Top Tier Timeline. Congratulations for making the end of the year again. Seems like the year's passing by faster and faster each year. I think it's like a getting old thing. As you get older, time does seem to compress a bit. But today's video, we are going to be compressing every single top tier deck from the beginning of the year to the end of the year into this one segment presented to you in a month-to-month fashion. As per usual, we're going to summarize some of the major product releases as well as ban list influence towards the meta deck pool, and as a bit of an upgrade to the segment because we got physical events back, we're also going to shine a spotlight on some of the major event winners that happened throughout the rest of the year. So congratulations to those people, you guys are probably going to come up. And also as a bit of an upgrade, as you can see, the segment looks completely different from last year. That's because we got a major upgrade thanks to today's video sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes and members who come together to find inspiration and take the next step in their creative journey. So I joined Skillshare to improve on myself, but most importantly, to develop skills that can help me reduce the amount of time I spend working every day. As many of you guys already know, I work full-time on top of doing YouTube. I record and edit my own videos, and occasionally dabble in designing the brands of other channels. So how do I have time to do all that? Simple. I learned time compression. Well, sort of. I learned how to be efficient with every single tool I know. But take editing, for example. It's a slow, real-time task. But if you take a couple of minutes to learn from advanced video editing with Adobe Premiere with Jordi Vanderput, you will save hours. I'm not even kidding. You will save hours of your time with all the shortcuts that he's going to be able to give you. And he's funny, he's straight to the point, he trimmed out all the fat, and best of all, you get to keep these skills for life. Now is the time to invest in yourself. With a Skillshare membership, you can get the skills to start your new hobbies, land a new career, and you can try out a risk-free 30-day trial. This is about you, your growth, and bringing your ideas and passions to life. The first 1,000 people to use the link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. And thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this episode takes a lot of work, research, and not to mention the editing to put all of this stuff together. So I would just appreciate you guys, if you guys just smash a thumbs up button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell, and here we go. Let's dig into January. So in January, in terms of product release, we didn't really see much of anything of influence. I'm just kidding, guys. We got Grand Creators, which was like one of the most influential sets of the entire year. It gave us the Adventure Package, Exorcisters. It also gave us like the slow burning cards of Punk, and not to mention my own personal Inzektor cards. In terms of meta decks, it was still a major spillover from December because Grand Creators didn't really get released until late January, so the influence you wouldn't really see in January. So for what we have here, we're still in a Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer infested pool of decks. We still have Protoss and Eva, so in terms of our decks, we had Sword Soul that played Protoss, so you still get Protoss lock, and we have Sky Striker that played DPE, or Mystic Mine. I think a lot of people just went for the DPE stuff because it was just a lot more fun, and it was really easy. Fusion Destiny was still at 3 at the time, and then we had DPE PK, Scythe locking, very common thing. People were just getting really sick of this kind of playstyle, and Drytron, of course, they could still do what they did in Master Duel during the release, which was lock people completely out of playing because we have one negate for every card in your hand. Yeah, that sounded very fun. And Bird Up was at full power. Again, one card for every card that you have, and if you wanted to normal summon Alistair, you could, but you still finish off with a DPE. So yeah, we were in that format. You guys remember that? Now that I refresh your memories, let's load up February. For February, there were two major pieces of news. One, the ban list for February 7th, and the second thing would be the Battle of Chaos core set release. Now let's look at the ban list first because that really shapes up of what decks we had remaining and the influence that comes from Grand Creators. So for February's ban list, they banned a lot of the most oppressive one-sided cards, such as Imperial Order, Eva, Smorg Bird of Sovereignty, and the Arch Nemesis Protoss. Bird of Sovereignty was mainly because it summoned a barrier statue for Bird Up. Eva was so that Drytron couldn't use Herald of Ultimateness just to get more negates. And Protoss was a summon lock. So it was like summon locks and basically mechanic shutdowns. They were getting banned left, right, center. And as for the stuff that was kind of controversial, I think the one was kind of odd was the Pot of Desires because it gave Sword Soul too much advantage advantage. And that's why most Sword Soul players, they were mainly just not playing the DPE package, but they rather just get the extra cards because the extra cards matter, pluses matter, and they brought back Snow. As for other things of like importance, I guess they semi-limited Fusion Destiny, making it less consistent, but overall, nothing too great in the semi-limits. But for stuff that did matter in the long term, we have Danger Nessie, which will matter a lot later on, and then we have 3 Skill Drain, which immediately took effect, and of course, Emergency Teleport. That card was paving its way for Punks to do well in the future. For Battle of Chaos, they gave us a bunch of wonderful cards, such as Guardian Chimera, our fusion boss monster, Illusion of Chaos, I guess a ritual engine to dig for Magician's Souls. We have the 20th Dark Magician, which was an added on addition at the end of the pack, so it could be an extra ultra rare at the end of the pack. I think one of the more influential cards, of course, would be Dark the Dark Charmer Link. That card is still played today, and it's just going to be till the end of time. We also got Libromancers, which didn't see much play at the beginning, and then we also got some support for like Sword Soul, like Qixing Longyan, and there's just a bunch of supportish stuff for this one. But in terms of decks, now we start to see the influence of Grand Creators, with Sword Soul getting a new variant such as Punk Sword Soul. We still have Tenyi Sword Soul, but people were just readapting right now thanks to the ban list. So Punk Sword Soul was like the newest toy, the shiny toy that they just got, as you could play the Aurora Dawn, the Hal combo, and you just push right through, and you can even get nibbed and still OTK someone. So that was kind of ridiculous. Sky Striker only really lost one copy of Fusion Destiny, so guess what they replaced it with? More Mystic Minds, and they still play Fusion Destiny because why not? And then there's also PK Adventure. Now this was pulled over from OCG because this was just kind of a carbon copy of what they had over there, and they just really took advantage of Cherubini being able to send the Water Enchantress for cost and set up your Scythe Lock and just get an Omni Negate with that Scythe Lock. It was pretty ridiculous, I would have to say. It was just really fun, and also gave us like just a generic Omni removal by bouncing cards with Draco back. Now Skill Drain Eldritch would see play as well because a lot of these decks were pretty weak in general. By base, it was just not very strong, and Eldritch was not impacted by the Skill Drain, so we saw that. But there was also Cyberse Eldritch, which would slowly creep up in play. That was kind of a niche deck at first, but it saw success in remote events from that point. And as it moved forward, again, it's another Scythe Lock deck. It was very powerful, but both engines work perfectly separately, and that's what made it so good. Virtual World saw play with Punk, Virtual World saw play with Adventure, because getting free bodies for Synchroing was good. Getting free bodies for Negate is also good, so that's why Virtual World did see play. However, it would slowly fall off, and then Prank Kids slowly got, more and more popular because of one fact. Because they were a one-card combo deck. That had a major influence for Prank Kids doing better and better, because we are going from a 9 hand trap-ish format to a 12 hand trap, eventually going towards 15 to 18. And that's why Prank Kids is going to move forward, and anything that required 2 cards to combo, well, will slowly die down. In March, no major set release, just a reprint set of Hidden Arsenal Chapter 1 gave us more Lava Golems and Skill Drains because it came off the ban list, of course, and then there's also Edison format cards. That's cool, but what March really allowed us to do was stew in the format, and we really got to savor the flavor of Grand Creator and how the format shifted, going from a 12 hand trap-ish format to now we're going towards like 15. We're loading the game with hand traps, and decks are going way above 40 now. Now it seems like people are going from like 42 to 46 to just all the way, just all the numbers. We've seen them all in this particular month. Now for Sword Soul, being more conservative with all these hand traps, they're going more towards the Tenyi to just take advantage of Ashuna and Adhara, just so they can cycle out your resources. As for Prank Kids, they jump ship into 60 card builds. That's become the more popular build, playing the adventure cards, playing a ton of hand traps, and what really allowed this to happen was that they were a 1-card combo deck. They can start with 1 card and just go all the way through, so they can load their hands with 4 hand traps and still take advantage of the entire game. Floowandereeze also start to see more play because of Battle of Chaos giving them their copy of Advent, and therefore they have a quick play spell to help dodge hand traps. Being a hand trap heavy format, Imperms and Veilers were pretty easy to hit them with, but now they can dodge it, as well as Ash never really being a total problem for them, so they were starting to see more play. However, they were always going to be a victim of their time because people played Shooting Riser Dragon, and anyone that cited a copy of Necroworld Banshee and Zombie World would just make it almost impossible for this deck to do as well as they could. And then there was Eldritch, again a zombie deck, Skill Drain still really powerful, nothing really changed here. And then there was the base deck that really started to surface, and this is a really high skill ceiling deck, and there were just a lot of variants. So it started off as as a 60 card variant, but it was super consistent thanks to the adventure package being one of the largest package you shove in there. Played a ton of hand traps, required very little startup, and also used the hand traps as ways to kick off the engine because it was a synchro. As long as you can get into Hulk plus a level 7, you just had full combo, and you had Baron, Omni Negates, bounces. Not only that, you also have Graveyard Disruption with Fairy Tail Snow. Maybe you would synchro during your opponent's turn to nuke their board. There was just a lot going for this deck, and it also just ended with like a multi Omni Negate board. This deck was insane. It also Artifact Scythe block people. It had every single flavor of this format in one deck, so it was just insane. And then there's also Dragon Link that also kind of made it to there, but it was mainly also taking advantage of the Rose Dragon stuff as well, because I think that was just a really free engine at the time. Moving on into April, we got a major product release in the form of a structure deck. We have the Albaz Strike structure deck, which completed the Despia strategy, no doubt about it, as well as we got in-person events. So we're going to celebrate 2 of the YCS winners in April. We have YCS Charlotte, Elijah Green, and we also have YCS Bagoda, Chris Lofton. I believe Elijah Green played the Prank Kids deck, and Lofton, he played the branded Despia deck. One thing to know about YCS Charlotte was that the Albaz Strike structure deck was not legal at the time, so it did not have any influence towards that event. Now that being said, looking at our deck, nothing really changed from the last month, really. Sword Soul, 10 Yi Sword Soul, still very powerful. Many tops within the events. 60 card Prank Kids being one of the most popular decks. Drytrons doing Artifact Scythe locking things. I was surprised that they did make a little bit of a comeback, but they were also really crazy strong because they would have set up both Artifact Lancia and Scythe through the use of Ben 10. There's also Eldritch, Skill Drain Eldritch. Skill Drain Eldritch, I believe, was the finalist of Charlotte, so you got that. Base was the most powerful deck, and most people played that deck, so it's just something that everyone just kind of preemptively countered, making it very hard to kind of see the top. And Branded Despia, you're going to see a lot more of this deck throughout the rest of the year. In May, that was a pretty big month. We got a ban list, a core set release of Dimension Force, and a premium product release of Ghosts from the Past 2. As well as YCS champions that we get to celebrate. YCS Guadalajara with Andreas Torres, which was able to win with branded Despia. As well as YCS Hartford, we have Po Jiang from Australia winning with Mind Striker. But first, let's take a look at the major influences from the ban list. We lost 3 cards, namely the Verte Anaconda, so not everyone has access to DPE. That was making the format fairly stale, and it was like everyone's kind of fallback. We also lost the Meow Meow Moo, so 1-card combo from Prank Kids had major impact towards that deck in terms of its future success. And Auroradon, which was a major hit towards, say, the base deck, as well as anything that really played Punk and Haki Fibrax. So those are some major hits that were just completely gone. You can't no longer go into Yazi and just have free follow-up. In terms of cards going to 1 that also affected the base deck, Rose Dragon went to 1, Red Rose Dragon in particular, and Shooting Rise Dragon went to 1. That was also major because that was because we were able to dump Snow, and then we were able to make another one to dump another really important card. I think having too many Foolish Burials was not allowed in this game, so that's why that was hit. Haki Firebax got put to 1. That was a slap on the wrist, to be honest. Those were the major cards, and that's why Jet Synchron was able to come back. Change of Heart was a bit of a surprise for everyone. As for anything else with major influence, I would say the Pot of Desires to 2 did become more playable, as well as Ben 10 to 2. We saw more people try to pick up Drytron, and that was really it. So for major cards of the 2 sets, we have Dimension Force and Ghost from the Past 2. I think Dimension Force definitely shaped up the format, especially post-ban list. With the Therian monsters, everyone gave them a try, tried to splash them into any deck possible because it's really just free advantage. And then there is also the Psychic End Punisher, Scare Claws, Punk Deer Note. That card definitely shaped up the Punk deck and made them stronger than ever, and you'll see why. Branded support, Ghost from the Past 2 gave us, I guess, a little bit of the agent stuff, but I think the most influential card in that set probably was going to be Boral End Dragon later on. In terms of decks, Sword Soul, they probably just got better thanks to Pot of Desires going to 2, so 10 Yi Sword Soul still sticking around. This deck will just basically never die. What a great investment if you guys went into for Sword Soul. Now, Adventure Punk. This is the successor deck to the base deck. Played very similarly, played a ton of synchros, and really took advantage of just milling cards into the graveyard and playing with the adventure package. This deck is incredible, and even pure Punks could have been played as well. As for Therian, now this is the deck with the most variety because it has the most amount of typing around it. As long as you played a matching type, you were able to kind of take advantage of these cards and get free summons and massive bodies. So Therian variants, we have, Punk Therian, which was a more psychic oriented build. We have Plant Therian, which was mainly Sun Avalon based. Rikas weren't really in at the time, and then we also have my personal favorite, ABC Machine Therian. and you can also play it with the adventure package as well. This is personally one of my favorite decks and one of my pet project decks for sure, and I enjoyed the crap out of it. Then Eldritch, still there, skill drain. Mind Striker, of course, with Pojang, kind of just taking it with Sky Striker. It really showed how annoying Mystic Mine is and really just popularized it for the rest of the year, so that everyone would just shove Mystic Mine as just an option. And then of course there was also branded Despia. Now in June, you might have noticed that the champion icon's a little bit different. That's because we didn't get WCQ this year. They weren't having World, so WCQ didn't make sense. Your points still transfer to the year after. So if you still have your invite from 2022, you can still go to the next event in 2023 for the WCQ. But in terms of side set release, we have Legendary Duelist Duels from the Deep, which gave us the Marincess and water support. This was the Gozen deck. I think the most competitive one would be the Marincess stuff, but we also got like a reprint of Droplet. Now in terms of champions to celebrate, I'm sorry, for Central America we got Elaine Munoz Goindez, and for South America we have Herman Bravo. I'm just pulling this stuff off of the forum, so if I don't mention your championship, I just don't know how to find it. I'm sorry guys. Now in terms of June's decks, Swordsoul still Swordsoul, Adventure Punk is still Adventure Punk, Therian variants still there. Everything is still like high variants. There's a lot of playability on a lot of different decks, and like even though it's like minor engine changes, it's still important to note that hey, we have variants. But one deck that kicked in slowly, which would be Adventure Dragon Link. This deck was slowly becoming the best deck of the format, hands down. It is so powerful. You get to push super far. And yeah, Adventure Dragon Link hands down, because they were able to play the punk stuff. They were able to take advantage of Chaos Ruler. Chaos Ruler becoming probably the most popular card and one of the most hated cards at this time, because milling 5, putting the snow into the grave. There's just so many targets that you want to put into the graveyard. It was ridiculous, and it was so easy to make, and it was also a 3k beat stick that came back to help you get that reach. Adventure Dragon Link really took advantage of that, and you can build some really nasty boards with that particular deck, and it really showed. It's like the best of like the stuff that you could play from the base deck, as well as some of the newer stuff from the Adventure Punk stuff. It was just everything in one package. Mind Striker still sticking around, and Branded Despia still here, and now they can even, you know, super poly even harder. In July, well, we've got some bad news, of course. The creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! Kazuki Takahashi has passed away, rest in peace. And well, there's gonna be a bit of an awkward transition, but Championship NA did happen in July as well, and our champion would be Hanzo Aguero. Hopefully I said that correctly. I believe he piloted Swordsoul. I believe Swordsoul was the deck he piloted. Correct me if I'm wrong. And in terms of the decks here, we have Swordsoul, still Adventure Punk, and this time I'm going to include Dragon Link as a part of it. Dragon Link, Adventure Punk is just all one package. They're all very similar play styles. Then we have Therian variants. I think ABC variant was like the last variant, because I think people were just really jumping ship, because it was a very competitive event. The more competitive it is, the less you're going to see of the other decks. Marincess, Elijah Green, I believe it was the one who topped with that one. And Sky Striker, that was Ryan Yu taking his second place with Mystic Mine. Unfortunately, just had a pretty bad run there, unfortunately, during the last game. And Branded Despia, still a very powerful deck. Moving past the championship season, now we're into August, and August is a completely new format because of the drop of Power of the Elements, the core set, and a side set of Tactical Masters, giving us like Runics, Labyrinth, and Valence, but we also have Sprites, Tearlaments, and Exorcisters. But in terms of our champion, we have YCS Rio de Janeiro, we have João Paulo C. Lima. I'm sorry I can't pronounce all parts of your name. Please forgive me, but we are still celebrating you. But in terms of decks, we are getting a completely new meta pool. We have Sprites, Frog Sprites, namely because we can abuse the crap out of Totally Awesome. Runics, because we're just banishing cards left and right. Not only are we milling people out, but we can also play Sprites with it, because it's just really that easy. You can play Control Sprites, and just remember to not, you know, skip your battle phase from time to time, alright? And then there's Exorcisters, taking advantage of Tearlaments, being able to move stuff out of the graveyard. Fuwanderees also now really taking advantage of that Mystic Mine. And yeah, oh my god, that's like the true anti-meta of the format. And then we have Tearlaments, people experimenting with Shaddolls, people experimenting with Dangers, Sprites, and I believe also Branded. That was that phase. I probably should have put the Branded one in there too. And Adventure Dragon Link still being the best deck at the time, you know, that moved over into August. We still saw a lot of this, and that's kind of how this format is shaped up, or rather this month shaped up. In September, the format really settled into itself. We got mainly just reprint sets, so nothing really changed anything. The tins were amazing, by the way, because we got the Lightning Storm, we got all the hand traps, and even the structure deck gave us even more hand traps. As for the YCS winner, YCS Niagara, we got Raymond Dye with Exorcisters. In terms of the decks, though, we have Sprites, we have Runic Sprites, we have Exorcisters, Floowandereeze with Mystic Mine, but Exorcister and Floowandereeze really showcase like, oh, Mystic Mine, that's great, but what's really good is that D-Shifter. D-Shifter just teared apart Tearlaments, but Tearlaments also settled now into Danger Sprite Tearlament or some variant of Danger because it was just so powerful and just was the definitive best version of that deck, just so much gas. And now we get to kick off October with a little bit of a ban list alert and a core set release of Darkwing Blast. Let's take a look at the ban list first here. We have Fairy Tail Snow, which was unbanned earlier this year, getting banned right after because she's not once per turn. And people really abuse the fact that she has her own special ruling, of course. And then we have Ronin Totem, also not once per turn, and really got abused the crap out of it for Totally Awesome. Just made one card Toad super easy. On top of that, we have Crystal Hockey Vibrax. I didn't really expect this one because not everyone was playing this card anymore. Chaos Ruler getting banned. This was more or less expected because this card was just so outrageous, and that had major implication of just lowering the tier of any dragon based deck that used this, as well as punk decks, of course. And then we have Red Reboot. That was, you know, a saving grace for a lot of the control decks that just really couldn't handle getting Red rebooted because it was more or less worse than getting hit by a Harpy's Feather Duster. And yes, we do have Harpy's Feather Duster. Anything else influential here? I don't think anything else really mattered. I guess a pointer got put to 1, so we can't really rip people's cards out. But in terms of stuff that got released, we got Ben 10 to 3, Shooting Riser back to 3, and I think it's just Fusion Destiny back to 3. Those are the main things here. Everything else didn't really have any impact for the rest of the format. So where the ban list wasn't able to influence, Darkwing Blast definitely, picked up the slack, giving us Kashtira, Bystials, Rolcala, Scream, Heartbeat, and Naturia cards. In terms of our YCS champions, we have YCS Minneapolis, Christopher LeBlanc, congratulations. Now in terms of the October decks, we got so much variety here. We got Sprite, we had Nimble Sprite thanks to Sprint being able to dump Nimble Angler. It just made it a lot easier, even post ban list. Runic Sprite still sticking around. Vernisylph, we have Madolche, we also have Naturia, probably having more impact, especially Naturia. That Mole Cricket is really dangerous. Then there's also Floowandereeze. It seems like Floowandereeze is the better deck now because it seemed to have lived through the entire year. Mystic Mine's still sticking around right now, so yeah, that deck is really strong and it really takes advantage of the no special summon policy. Bystials, we got tons of variants. We have Rockets, basically Dragon Link Bystial, let's put it that way, and then we have Thunder Dragon, and we also have Branded. There's just so many different ways you can play it because it just synergizes generically with dragons. Tearlaments, I think now they're defined as Dangerous Tearlament. Look at all that variety, but don't get used to it. Because November is here and we're in a tier 0 format thanks to the product from Magnificent Mavens. Yay. Hooray. So Magnificent Maven, still a really, really good product. I mean, if you want to get into Yu-Gi-Oh, this is the product you go for because it has so much going for it. And then there's also the battle set release of Crystal's Revenge. Normally, I'd be more excited for the battle set. I'm looking for some of the exclusives, but I'm just saying, Mama set is probably best set. And then looking at our YCS champions, we have YCS Pasadena, Hani Jawari, and YCS San Jose, we have Jesse Cotton. And, okay, guys, don't be fooled by this graphic here, seeing that there's 5 decks here. Like, 80 to 90% of it is all Ishizu Tearlaments. These are some of the, tier 1, tier 2 that are just barely scraping by. So we're talking about, Nimble Sprite, Vernisylph deck, these are just barely scraping by. Floowandereeze, again, barely scraping by, and Bystial decks, barely scraping by. That's just how it is. We're in the tier 0 format. Ishizu tier is just dominating everything right now. And we're in December and we're still in a tier 0 format. Luckily, we did get a ban list. For better or for worse, it's kind of early. If you actually look at the chart there, every single exclamation mark on the side that you see right here, yeah, they're all ban lists, and you can see October and December are really close to each other. Yeah, but anyways, in terms of product release, we only got one, which is Dark World. I think Dark World will be able to, stand against some of these most powerful decks. But let's firstly take a look at the ban list. Mystic Mine finally banned. Your prayers have been answered. And Curious got preemptively banned. Unfortunately, that is really sad because Dark World would have really taken advantage of that. One card going to 1 now is a bit of a sad card, which is going to be Herald of the Orange Light because the Ishizu deck played it. or rather Ishizu Tearlament played it, and it was just very hard to crack anything. They just seem to have all the answers, and they just start milling like crazy. And they also brought back Recital Starling, which was limited earlier in this year. They also brought back a lot of cards that I never thought that we would see again, but one card that I knew was going to come back. We've got Ptolemaeus, so that we can go into Constellar Diamond. We have the Fire Formation Tenki. We got a bunch of Banish base cards, and Metaverse is back to 3 because Mystic Mine is now gone. Now, don't let this graphic fool you. Ishizu Tearlament still tier 0. It's still taking 80 to 90% of representation. But, you know, still want to, you know, give a W to wherever I can find one. You know, I'm really scraping the bottom of the barrel here, which is Sprites, Nimble Sprites. They're still, you know, taking 1 or 2 spots here. Vernacelves, we got variants because this is the Earth deck. So we got Ishizu mixes of Madolche and also the Cricket, which is Naturia. Flunderies lost the Mystic Mine now, but they still have that shifter going for them. Bystial's still here, and the only addition really from last month is going to be Dark World. I do believe Dark World is very strong. Hand looping is very, very strong, but the Dark World fusion also gets to be used by the Ishizu Tearlament because Grapha plus a Dark and Ishizu, whether Tearlaments they themselves are already dark, making just the fusion Grapha just that much easier for them to have access to as well. Yeah, but that's what it looks like right now. I wonder how things are going to change. I know in the future we're going to see some more Kashtira because, you know, Photon Hypernova really hyping that up, and I'm really looking forward to that one. And TCG is in particular because we don't have Max C, and that's what I like about it. We don't have Max C, so that we're not going to get punished for over special summoning. For the most part. I mean, we still can get nibbed, but we're going to see a little bit of a hand trap shift in the future. I'll probably talk about that in the future, but we have finally reached the conclusion of this video. Thank you guys for watching this video. Don't forget to check out this video's sponsor, Skillshare. It really allowed this video to be styled like this. If you guys want to learn stuff, I personally really enjoyed it, and you know, there's nothing better than upgrading yourself. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, smash that thumbs up button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell. Thank you, Patreons, for making this year possible, and I will see you guys in the next one.